Hello everyone. Today we'll be discussing about secondary glaucoma. Glaucoma by itself is a very complex topic, but if you can understand the mechanisms behind it, it becomes rather easy to grasp. So coming to the classification. The classification can be based on etiology or it can be based on a mechanism. So based on etiology, they are classified as primary and secondary. I'll be elaborating about it in the coming slides. And based on mechanism, you have an open angle glaucoma mechanism, angle closure glaucoma mechanism, and also developmental anomalies of the anterior chamber angle, which play a big role in developmental and congenital glaucomas. So what are the differences between when you classify according to the etiology? You have both primary and secondary, and what do you consider as primary and what is considered as secondary? So coming to the etiological classification, primary, here the events that lead to the outflow obstruction and IOP elevation are confined to the anterior chamber angle and outflow pathways. The events which are leading to the outflow obstruction and IOP elevation are confined to the anterior chamber angle as well as the outflow pathways. There is no contribution by systemic or ocular factors. It is bilateral and usually has a genetic basis. Whereas if it is a secondary, you can usually identify another cause and it may be associated with predisposing systemic and ocular factors, may be unilateral or bilateral, may have a genetic basis or may be acquired. So primary usually do not have any systemic or ocular factors and it's usually bilateral, has got a genetic basis, whereas in a secondary you will be able to identify a cause in many of the occasions, may have a predisposing systemic and ocular factors, may be unilateral or bilateral, and the genetic basis, it can have a genetic basis or may be acquired. So how do you classify an angle as open or closed? So for classifying an angle as open or closed, the confirmatory test would be a gonioscopy only. So what do you see in gonioscopy? In gonioscopy you are going to see the angle structures. From anterior to posterior, the angle structures will be the Schwalbe's line, the trabecular meshwork, which has got anterior and posterior portions, and it is the posterior part of the trabecular meshwork which is the major site of filtration. So it is called as a functional part. And then you have the scleral spur and the ciliary body band. So if you are going to see three or more structures, say you are able to see the scleral spur or the ciliary body band, it's a wide open angle. And trabecular meshwork, if you are able to see the posterior part, that is a functional part, then also it comes as an open angle. But if you are seeing less than that, only a part of the trabecular meshwork or Schwalbe's line, or you are not able to see any structures at all, then you call it as a narrow angle or a closed angle, right? So the picture on your screen shows a Goldman 3-mirror gonium prism. So in this slide, you're able to see all the four structures in the angle. You have the ciliary body band, you have the scleral spur right here, then you have the trabecular meshwork, and this is the Schwalbe's line. So this is a wide open angle where you're able to visualize all the four structures. So now that you know what an open angle looks like and what is a closed angle, we'll move on to the mechanisms involved. Okay, so we are going to secondary open angle glaucoma mechanisms, where the angle is open but there are secondary factors which are responsible for the glaucoma. So the secondary open angle mechanisms this is further classified into pre-trabecular, trabecular and post-trabecular part. So what happens in a pre-trabecular part? In a pre-trabecular mechanism, there is a translucent membrane which is across the open angle, stretching across the iridocorneal angle. It can be a fibrovascular membrane, it can be an inflammatory epithelial or endothelial in nature, or it could be even vessels as in a neovascular glaucoma. And this will interfere with the filtration or with the drainage of your aqueous, leading to an increase in intraocular pressure. So there may be a translucent membrane present across the open iridocorneal angle, and this can be a fibrovascular membrane, inflammatory, epithelial or endothelial in nature, and this prevents your proper drainage of aqueous across the trabecular meshwork. So moving on to the trabecular causes. So in trabecular causes, what happens is there is a clogging of the trabecular meshwork, which can be by red blood cells as in hyphema. So hyphema is nothing but accumulation of blood in the anterior chamber, and you can have red blood cells which are going and clogging a trabecular meshwork. Or if you take a case of phacolytic glaucoma, where there is a leakage of lens protein from the to an intact capsule, this lens protein will go and clog a trabecular meshwork. In addition to that, there is a lot of macrophages are drawn into that area because the lens protein is a sequestered antigen. So these macrophages will also go and block your trabecular meshwork, leading to clogging of your trabecular meshwork and interfering with the drainage of aqueous. Other cells which can be present in the trabecular meshwork area may be neoplastic cells in intraocular malignancies, pigment cells from pigmentary glaucoma or a pigment dispersion syndrome, or pseudoexfoliative material from pseudoexfoliation syndrome, which will in turn clog your trabecular meshwork, leading to decrease in drainage of aqueous across your trabecular meshwork. So this is a picture of hyphema. You're able to see the blood in the anterior chamber. These RBCs will go and clog your trabecular meshwork, leading to an increase in intraocular pressure. Similarly, in the post-operative period, viscoelastics can go and clog your trabecular meshwork, which can cause an increase in intraocular pressure in the post-operative period. It usually subsides over a few days, and it can be managed conservatively. Or if there is a posterior capsular rent on table and there is a vitreous disturbance, this vitreous, if it is not cleared well from the anterior chamber, can go and clog your trabecular meshwork, leading to an increase in intraocular pressures. In addition to all these things clogging your trabecular meshwork, you can also have edema of the trabecular meshwork region in inflammatory conditions because of trauma or because of a toxic reaction to an retained intraocular foreign body. All these things will also contribute to the trabecular portion filtering less of aqueous. So this is a picture of a pigmentary glaucoma. You can see the Krukenberg spindle on your screens. This is a Krukenberg spindle, nothing but a pigment deposition on the endothelial side of your cornea. And because of the excessive pigment dispersion, you can see the iris transillumination because the pigment gets off, it gets dispersed from this region, so that you are able to see the brilliant transillumination of the iris. So this is your Krukenberg spindle, and we move on to the next slide. This is pseudoexfoliation syndrome. You can see the dandruff like material which is deposited on the lens capsule. It can get deposited on the endothelial surface, leading to loss of endothelial cells. It can get deposited on your zonules, leading to digestion of the zonules and associated with subluxation of the lens. In addition to that, patients who are having a pseudoexfoliation syndrome will also have a poorly dilating pupils. So you can expect a lot of complications in patients with pseudoexfoliation when you do the surgery. And so this pseudoexfoliative material can also go and clog your trabecular meshwork, leading to a secondary open angle glaucoma, causing an increase in intraocular pressures. So where do you get this kind of abnormal tissue? For example, in a patient with the neovascular glaucoma, you got this new vessels which are present over the iris. Okay, these are all new vessels over the iris, not the normal vessels. These vessels initially will be present in the So these are new vessels over the iris. It is called as rubeosus iridis, and you can also see new vessels over the angle. Initially these new vessels will be going across an open angle. They will be interfering with filtration. Later on what will happen is there will be a fibrovascular membrane formation, and once this fibrovascular membrane contracts, what happens is the iris gets opposed to the cornea, permanently sealing off and closing off the angle of the anterior chamber, right? So coming to the post-trabecular mechanism. So in post-trabecular mechanism there is a resistance, but this resistance is at the level of the Schlemm's canal, okay, beyond your trabecular meshwork. So there can be a clogging of the Schlemm's canal because of a sickled RBCs, or it can be secondary to an elevated episcleral venous pressure, as in a caroticocavernous fistula, cavernous sinus thrombosis, Stouch-Weber syndrome, or superior vena cava obstruction, and also thyrotoxicosis. So caroticocavernous fistula, cavernous sinus, all those things are associated with episcleral venous pressure, which will in turn interfere with the drainage of the aqueous. So this is a picture of a person with a Stouch-Weber syndrome. You can see the huge hemangioma over one half of the face. And these are the prominent episcleral vessels seen in a patient with caroticocavernous fistula because of the increased episcleral venous pressure. So we have finished with open angle, secondary open angle mechanisms, right? So secondary open angle mechanisms, resistance can be at the level of the pretrabecular region, trabecular or post-trabecular region. Pretrabecular, it is mostly, it could be because of a translucent membrane, epithelial or endothelial or fibrovascular membrane, which is in the level of the inner side of your anterior chamber angle. In trabecular mechanisms, it's because of clogging by cells which can be different in nature, or it can be because of edema. Then again you have post-trabecular mechanisms where you have clogging of the Schlemm's canal or elevated episcleral venous pressure. All these things contributing to decreased flow of aqueous across the trabecular meshwork into your Schlemm's canal, leading to an increase in intraocular pressure. Now we move on to angle closure. In angle closure, you've got both anterior and posterior mechanism. Anterior is a pulling mechanism where there is an abnormal tissue which will bridge the angle, and once this abnormal tissue contracts, there will be a pulling mechanism. That is, the iris will be pulled towards your cornea, so closing the angle. So this abnormal tissue can be a fibrovascular membrane, it can be an endothelial layer, or it can be inflammatory precipitates. So we are seeing about secondary angle closure glaucoma mechanism. So what happens is, one, you can have a fibrovascular membrane here, okay, which will pull the iris towards the cornea, and this is a pulling mechanism. You can also have a pushing mechanism, right? So because of the iridolenticular adhesions, there is aqueous accumulating here, which is pushing the iris forward, causing a bowing of the iris, which is called as iris bombing. So what happens is, so the iris tends to approximate close to the cornea, and thereby causing adhesions and closure of the angle here. The same thing will be happening without a pupillary block and a posterior pushing mechanism as well. Suppose there is a ciliary body tumor or a ciliary body cyst here, it will tend to push the iris lens diaphragm forward, leading to a so if there is a cyst here in this area, it will tend to push the iris without pupillary block. So that is a pushing mechanism. So where do you get this kind of abnormal tissue? For example, in a patient with the neovascular glaucoma, you got this new vessels which are present over the iris. Okay, these are all new vessels over the iris, not the normal vessels. So these are new vessels over the iris. It is called as rubeosus iridis, and you can also see new vessels over the angle. Initially, these new vessels will be going across an open angle. They will be interfering with filtration. Later on, what will happen is there will be a fibrovascular membrane formation, and once this fibrovascular membrane contracts, what happens is the iris gets opposed to the cornea, permanently sealing off and closing of the angle of the anterior chamber. So that is anterior mechanism where there is a pulling factor. There is a fibrovascular membrane which is going to contract and pull the iris towards the cornea. In addition to that, you have got, for secondary angle closure, you have got a posterior mechanism as well. The posterior mechanism is a pushing mechanism. Something is pushing from behind, okay. So this pushing mechanism can be associated with the pupillary block or without a pupillary block. What happens when there is a pupillary block? When you have posterior synechia. So posterior synechia is nothing but adhesions between the iris and your lens. When you have posterior synechia and inflammation such as uveitis, what happens is your aqueous is not able to flow from the posterior chamber into the anterior chamber. The aqueous is normally formed in the posterior chamber and it enters into the anterior chamber by flowing through the pupillary region. So once this posterior synechia is there, which is nothing but adhesions between your lens and iris, and if it is there over 360 degrees or if there is a pupillary membrane there, so what happens is that the aqueous is not able to flow from the posterior chamber into the anterior chamber, and what happens is this aqueous tends to accumulate behind the iris and pushes the iris forward. So that is a pushing mechanism. The same kind of thing happens when you have an irido-intraocular lens adhesions or when there is a vitreous blocking your pupillary area. What happens is there is a pooling of aqueous behind the iris leading to the iris bulging forward, which is called as iris bombay, and leading to a secondary angle closure glaucoma. So that leads to a secondary angle closure glaucoma. So this is an iris bombay, and see the bulging iris. Look at the bulging iris. The iris is almost approximating with the corneal slit. So there is a inflammatory precipitates over here, and there is a 360 degree posterior synechia which is not allowing any aqueous to flow from the posterior chamber into the anterior chamber, resulting in a bulging of the iris, and there is an approximation between the iris and the cornea leading to closure of the angle. So without pupillary block, what is the mechanism is there are intraocular tumors, or you can have iris or ciliary body cysts, or in aqueous misdirection syndrome, what happens is there is a increased pressure in the posterior segment, and this causes the vitreous iris lens diaphragm to move forward and block the angle of the anterior chamber. So this is a posterior pushing mechanism without a pupillary block. Remember, as far as angle closure glaucoma is concerned, you have got anterior, which is a pulling mechanism where there is a fibrovascular membrane which is contracting and pulling it towards the iris is being pulled towards the cornea, and a posterior pushing mechanism. This can occur with pupillary block. You saw in cases of inflammation as uveitis, or because of vitreous blocking the pupillary area, or without a pupillary block as in intraocular tumors, iris cysts and other things, right? Now we move on to lens-induced glaucoma. So we have seen the mechanism of secondary glaucoma in secondary glaucoma mechanism with both the open angle and the closed angle. Now we move on to lens-induced glaucomas. So coming to lens-induced glaucomas, the main lens-induced glaucomas will be phacomorphic glaucoma, where there is an intumescent lens. An intumescent lens is one which is a swollen lens, nothing but a swollen lens. The swollen lens can occur in course of its maturation, or when there is an injury to the lens, there may be a sudden swelling in the lens, and what happens is the lens swells suddenly and it causes a pupillary block. And this pupillary block, again there is because of a pupillary block, the aqueous gets accumulated behind the iris, pushes the iris forward, leading to iris bombay and a secondary angle closure glaucoma. Then you have another entity which is called as phacolytic glaucoma. What happens in phacolytic glaucoma? So in phacolytic glaucoma is nothing but microscopic leakage of the lens protein through an intact capsule. So what happens is this lens protein goes and clogs the trabecular meshwork. In addition to that, there are a lot of macrophages recruited into that area, and which also go and clog your trabecular meshwork, leading to an increase in intraocular pressure. This is basically a secondary open angle mechanism, where because of the clogging of the trabecular meshwork, you are having increase in intraocular pressure. Then phacotopic glaucoma. This is nothing but anterior dislocation of the lens occurs, and once the lens dislocates into the anterior chamber, the iris contracts behind the lens, creating another pupillary block, and that is called as phacotopic glaucoma. So this is phacomorphic glaucoma. You can see the circumcorneal congestion. Look at the cornea. The cornea is totally edematous and hazy. The anterior chamber is totally shallow, and this intumescent lens is touching against your iris, causing a total pupillary block here. This is phacomorphic glaucoma, an example of a secondary angle closure glaucoma, where the secondary angle closure is due to the intumescent lens. So this is a picture of a Morgagnian cataract. This is the nucleus outline. Okay, so this is the nucleus outline, and this is a milky cortex. What happens is this milky cortex will have a tendency to leak out and cause a phacolytic glaucoma. Again, you can see a circumcorneal congestion is there, and you have severe corneal edema. You are not able to see the things underneath. So there's a milky, there's a lot of reaction in the eye. This is a phacolytic glaucoma. So in both the cases, you need to remove the lens. So any lens induced glaucoma calls for intervention. In phacolytic glaucoma, it is enough if you do a cataract extraction, wash the anterior chamber angle very well, and put in an intraocular lens. Whereas in phacomorphic glaucoma, you need to assess how long the angle has been closed, and if it is closed for more than 180 degree, you may have to do a trabeculectomy along with the cataract extraction, which is called as combined surgery with the intraocular lens placement. So what is the reason why you have so much of a reaction? The lens is a sequestered antigen, and your body is not exposed to the lens when you are developing. Okay, so once this antigen is exposed in the later stages, the body mounts a severe inflammatory response against this antigen, and that is why you are having so much of a reaction to the lens particle. So phacotoxic uveitis, it is sometimes associated with glaucoma, so that's called as a lens particle glaucoma. What happens is lens particles come out of the come out into the anterior chamber, and they clog your trabecular meshwork, leading to an increase in intraocular pressure, and also the body will mount an inflammatory response to this as well. So that is phacotoxic uveitis associated with glaucoma, otherwise known as lens particle glaucoma. You have one another variety which is called as phacoanaphylactic glaucoma. So phacoanaphylactic means your lens protein has been exposed as a result of any previous injury or surgery, and the patient on undergoing a subsequent procedure. Suppose he has got previously injured in the right eye. When he undergoes a procedure in the right eye, which is the primary eye, he may develop a severe reaction and glaucoma. Or if he has sustained an injury in the right eye, but he is undergoing a surgery in the left eye, still the body will react to the antigen exposed antigen in the right eye, and he will develop a glaucoma or a phacoanaphylactic reaction in the fellow eye as well. That is the left eye. Fellow eye is the left eye. So these are the common lens induced glaucomas. So you have phacomorphic glaucoma, phacolytic, phacotopic, phacotoxic uveitis with glaucoma, and phacoanaphylactic uveitis with glaucoma. So these are some of the lens induced glaucomas. A lens induced glaucoma is an indication for you to remove the lens. So you have to go in and do surgery to remove the lens and take appropriate steps to restore the intraocular pressure in such patients. I just given a few examples. So you can try to see whether you're able to come up with the answers for these questions, right? So chronic simple glaucoma is it a secondary open angle glaucoma, primary open angle glaucoma, or a congenital glaucoma? So it is a primary open angle glaucoma. Chronic simple glaucoma is otherwise known as primary open angle glaucoma. Now, peripheral iridotomy or iridectomy is helpful in open angle glaucoma, developmental glaucoma, angle closure glaucoma. Peripheral iridotomy or iridectomy helps when there is an iris bombing. Okay, so when there is an iris bombing, you want to create another route for the aqueous to flow from the posterior chamber into the anterior chamber, and that is how it helps relieve the intraocular pressure. So this is done in angle closure glaucoma. Now coming to phacomorphic glaucoma, here it's an intumescent lens. So is it causing a secondary angle closure glaucoma, secondary open angle glaucoma, or a primary angle closure glaucoma? So it is an intumescent lens which is causing pupillary block, and so it is an example for a secondary angle closure glaucoma. Phacolytic glaucoma, is it a secondary open angle glaucoma, secondary angle closure glaucoma, or a primary open angle glaucoma? Phacolytic glaucoma, I told you, there is a clogging of the trabecular meshwork by the macrophages as well as the lens protein, so it is a secondary open angle glaucoma. And ciliary body cyst can cause a primary angle closure glaucoma or a secondary open angle glaucoma or secondary angle closure glaucoma. The ciliary body cyst will cause a pushing mechanism, and thereby it will cause a secondary angle closure glaucoma. So I think we are coming to the end of the session. Thank you.